Welcome, everybody. Good evening. I will call the Select Board to order on, what is it, March 15th, 2022 at about 6:32 p.m. So how do we do, oh, Bill's not on yet, so we don't, so Chairman Olson will, I think, join the meeting later. We're here. We don't have to do roll call, right?
No.
All right, and I'll call to order the Hamilton Finance and Advisory Committee again on March 15th at 6:33 p.m. We have 4 members present, and David Wanger is present remotely. An associate member, Harry Phillip, is also participating remotely.
So just a point of order, the Fincom votes will all have to be by roll call vote because you have one member participating remotely.
Okay.
My apologies.
Thanks, David.
So, you want to start?
All right, so yeah, I guess we should go, we are going to, all right. I guess pledge allegiance, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know if we did that. Do this.
I want to make sure I remember.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And public comment for 3 minutes?
All right. So welcome public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes on topics that are not on the agenda for tonight. Anyone in the room? Anyone in virtual world?
Nobody in virtual world.
All right. All right, and from there, it's the warrant, right?
There's the warrant, yep. So, would you like us to try to lead the discussion on the warrant? We'll help you out.
Yeah,
All right, so,
that'd be good.
obviously, the first two items don't need any votes from either of the boards. We haven't determined yet with the moderator if reports are going to be given orally or just accepted in written form as they've been the last few town meetings. So we'll touch base with Moderator Bowler at some point in the next week or so to determine that. We have a recommendation of some articles for consent motion that the 2 boards may want to consider. Article 1-3.
And we'll hit those as we go through, or at the end?
Yeah, so does anybody, well, just real quick, if we could talk about, we're suggesting Articles 2-1, 2-5, 2-6, 2-7, and 2-8 as being consent motion items. Does anybody have anything they want to hold off of that, or they want to add to?
Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. It's 2.1, 2-1, 2-5, 2-6, 2-7, and 2-8.
Thank you.
The FinCom discussed this and decided that we agree with the consent articles.
Can we add 2-10, the stabilization fund?
Tom, does the stabilization fund?
I think it's a vote then, yeah.
That's a different vote, right?
It's a
Right,
different-
2/3.
In my opinion, you certainly could, but it would then change the quantum of votes to 2/3
Yeah.
for the entire article as opposed to just.
We traditionally have kept it separate for that reason, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, everything has to go by that 2/3 vote,
That's right, yeah.
I'm okay with adding it, but then everything becomes a 2/3 vote, so maybe we should keep it separate.
That's what I feel.
Yeah, I wouldn't go there.
Jay wondered if 2-11 could be.
So the CPC chairman asked if 2-11 could be included. 2-11 is the first CPC article. It's the bulk of Appendix G. Includes
And that's basically putting our money into the different buckets
Yeah.
for the year. So I think that could be added. But it's up to the will of the board, I guess. Did FinCom discuss this at all?
I don't think we talked about that.
Would we like to discuss it?
We love discussing things.
Yes, why not?
Discuss it in order or out of order?
Well, do you want to kind of hold on it, and then we can put the items kind of that Joe mentioned on the consent, and then when we get to this appendix in the CPC article, then we can kind of add that in addition if we decide at the moment. Does that make sense to everybody?
Sure.
The next item then is,
So do we, Joe, just a point of clarification, do we need to make a motion for anything to go on the consent for the Board of Selectmen? I know the FinCom already talked about it, but we
I would
might as well.
suggest that we do when we record the votes, because that'll help people understand that we put it into the consent motion, and you've also agreed to recommend them for favorable
Yep.
action or not, or what.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we add to the consent agenda Articles 2-1, 2-5, 2-6, 2-7, 2-8.
Second. Which opens it up for discussion, so we're going to take them individually as well.
Yeah.
As we go through the warrant, we'll take them individually and record
Yeah.
your votes, so that they'll be recorded in the warrant book.
Yeah, good point.
Okay. Next item is 2-1.
We should vote on it,
Yeah.
Okay.
just saying.
Sorry.
So, any
Why I'm
further
not the chair.
discussion? All in favor on the select board, say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Nay?
unanimous?
Unanimous.
Do we need a second motion for the FinCom?
I think you have to make your own motion and say.
Yeah, I would say so.
So can I have a motion to support the articles that are listed for the consent motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? So we'll take a roll call vote. David Wenger?
Well,
You were muted, but I saw an aye.
Correct, aye.
Aye. John McGrath?
Aye.
Nick Benson, aye.
John Perlich, aye.
And Christina Shank-Hargrove, aye. So that's unanimous for that.
All right. Two
And then-
dash,
Sorry, when we get to 2-11, we can talk about whether we want to put that on, also add that to the consent agenda too. Okay.
Right.
So 2-1.
So 2-1 is the compensation classification table.
This appears as Appendix A in the packet.
So if you want, I'll start out with a motion to vote in favorable action for 2-1 for the select board.
do I have a second?
Second.
All right.
Let me
All
actually
right,
do the
and-
motion in the second here too, then we can have the discussion.
Yep.
of both
Yeah, let's do
parts.
that.
So can I have a motion?
I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-1.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? I guess, Joe and/or Alex, will it be, can you just describe briefly what's in Appendix A? Since it's 4 pages long, can you just
Yeah.
sort of describe in one sentence what those all are?
Sure. Appendix A contains the town's wage grid, which shows positions, starting with exempt positions and then hourly, sort of descending in grade. And then there are, within each bargaining unit, has its own table as well. And there are 3 bargaining units which are currently under negotiation, so they're not settled yet. We've anticipated sort of a ballpark range for what those should land in based on other unions that have recently settled, and so that money's been set aside into a salary reserve account. If and when those unions do in fact settle, we will then transfer money from the salary reserve into those respective departmental accounts. And then that is generally it. There also, on the last page, there is a roster of elected and appointed positions which fall outside of the compensation classification table. So that's page 4 of Appendix A. And then a list of stipends for various duties that are performed above and beyond people's job descriptions.
And is there some way to tell from these tables what the changes are from prior fiscal year?
There are not. I can call them out for you right now, at least on the wage grid. I think that I have all of them. So there's been some discussion over the last few weeks about the town clerk position regrading from a grade 12 to a grade 16. So that movement is noted here. And then there's also been movement on the hourly positions from a grade 12 to a grade 14 for the assistant town accountant finance director. So movement in that direction was recommended by myself and Joe, sort of in recognition of the exemplary work product and the sort of just sort of the importance of the assistant town accountant to the town's organization.
Thank you. I don't see any further discussion from Fincom.
Just a quick question on the compensation. Is it the compensation table? Is it reviewed against other towns on an annual basis, or is it?
I don't know if
how is it vetted, I guess is the real word.
How is it vetted? It's not reviewed on an annual basis. Individual jobs are reviewed routinely as they sort of come available for, so if somebody leaves or considering a new position, something like that, we do sort of salary surveys, and we look at peer communities based on demographic size, that sort of thing, and then we try to place a position on the grid based on what we find is comparable. The sort of the market conditions will also dictate that. So we're in a really difficult hiring market right now, and so we can't really stretch things too low. We have, if we want to attract and retain good candidates, we have to be competitive in the market. And so whenever we're looking to place a position, those are the things that we consider. The standard movement, just so you know, between each step, there are 8 steps on the wage grid. It's 2% between each step, to give you an idea of what that looks like. And so that's that would be the standard for anyone that lives outside of a union contract. In any given year, they'll get a 2% increase on their page as they move up to different grades throughout the wage grid.
Thanks, Alex.
Right, any discussion from us?
I think it's fine.
All right, let's vote.
All right.
Jamie, you want to call the vote?
All right, all in favor of all in favor of the motion, which was recommending approval on 2-1, say aye.
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 Unanimously approved.
And for the FinCom, let's do a roll call vote. David Wanger,
Aye.
John McGrath,
Aye. Nick Tenson, aye.
John Prulidge, aye.
Christina Schenk-Hargrove, aye.
All right.
Article 2 is a prior year bills. We have 2 bills this year for a total amount of $9,218.80.
All right, I move that we recommend favorable action on paying our prior year bills, Article 2-2.
Second.
And can I have a motion from FinCom?
I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-2.
Second.
Any discussion?
Discussion?
It's always good to pay our past bills.
Yeah, always good practice.
Right. And obviously, we reviewed these and what they are and why they are still out there, and all sounds reasonable and good to us, so.
All right. All in favor of the motion to approve or recommend approval on 2-2, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? No, unanimously opposed. I mean, unanimously passes. Unanimously opposed. No, passes, is what I meant.
And for FinCom, we'll take the roll call vote again.
Dave Wanger, aye.
John McGrath, aye. Nick Tenson, aye.
John Prulidge, aye.
Christina Schenk-Hargrove, aye.
We're getting good at this, guys.
On a roll.
Okay, the next item is the Article 2-3, the General Town Departmental Appropriation. So this is your main budget motion.
There we go.
All right.
All right,
I'll,
may I have a motion?
Yep, I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-3, General Town Departmental Appropriations.
Second.
And for FinCom?
I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-3.
Second.
And then I think, Alex, if you could kind of do what you did for the compensation table to this one, because this is a big number for folks if they are watching at home to kind of understand what it's entailing.
Yeah, sure. So these there are sort of two, I guess, categories that appear within Article 2-3. They appear as Appendix B and Appendix B1 as well, and then C. Appendix B represents the sort of the total general fund budget, and included within that is the school department. So the regional school department's budget is included as a line item in that. That entire budget, which is a little over $21 million, I believe, appears as its own Appendix C as well for sort of more detail. So when you walk through Appendix B, the budget is broken down into sort of what we call government area. So it's broken down by department, and then within each department, the personnel expenses and the operating expenses within each account. When you walk through the budget, you can look at sort of subtotals, which we can sort of get into. So for general government area, which contains most of your town hall departments, the request is $2,296,762. Public safety, which contains police, emergency, the ECO, fire. Public safety, it also includes emergency management, animal control, and inspectional services. That's at $3,502,800. DPW, which includes all of your DPW departments, also cemeteries, vehicle maintenance, so your repair mechanics, etc. Parks and fields, budget totals $2,249,675. Health and Human Services, which includes public health, COA, veterans, it's $338,000. Culture and Recreation, which is your library, which we all know is a regional program here. And recreation totals $1,082,247,000. And then unclassified expenses. These are expenses that don't live within a single sort of department or unit, but they are all very important to the operation nonetheless. Totals $4,434,941. And the schools are broken out as their own. And the total schools, so the regional district as well as the North Shore Agricultural Technical District, totals $22,530,203, bringing us to a grand total of $36,435,101 when you round up.
It's highway, but it's 60,000.
And Alex, you said in Appendix C was the school numbers, is that correct? And
Yeah.
I don't see it in my packet. Do other people have it in their packet? No, it goes B to D in my packet.
Right. We'll get paper copies of this printed for you right away, and we'll hand them out. I think we can probably do it during the meeting here. Appendix C contains a breakdown of the school budget. And I can pull up some numbers for us real quick here. I can get a copy of it printed.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we have it. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen it, but I just want to make sure if this is what we're going to send out, we want to make sure it's in it.
If you can print one out, can you go from there?
I'll print it to you. I can tell you that the schools, the regional district had about a 3.38% increase over their FY '22 budgeted amount. And the Essex Agricultural District had, I think, I want to say a 3.9.
4.93.
It was almost 5, wasn't it?
4.93.
Yeah.
Yeah, the regional school district, the Hamilton Regional School District, you know, the summary in your warrant explains that the total increase in school spending was $597,977. But the increase for Hamilton was $711,407 because the shift came back to our direction this year. So that, it reads a little funny, but it's actually accurate.
Right.
So also, for this item, this article, yes, being printed right now. The sort of, historically, let's go to the second floor. Historically, that's been split between the town and the sort of educational costs. And so, and so that breakdown is provided as well.
Sure.
Oh, I'll have an extra one there. So that budget's been discussed sort of at length, you know, obviously at the school committee's level, and then within the Fincom as well. It's been some pretty vibrant discussions, well attended. So
yeah, the one point I'll make at the highest level, and a lot of energy, blood, sweat, and tears went into the budget, particularly on the part of the school department and Vinnie. Tremendous amount of energy, work, and passion. The end result is that when you look at the Hamilton budget, the percent of our expenses continues to creep up slightly every year, where the school department combined, both the regional and then the Essex school, continues to consume slightly larger and larger portion of the overall Hamilton spending. And, you know, without diving into any of the details, I'm certainly not the expert, but it's really up for the taxpayers to decide, do we want to continue to incrementally absorb larger and larger expense trend. So I think there's a concerted effort on the part of both Hamilton and Wenham and the school department to roll up our sleeves going forward and continue to face this challenge. But I think the key takeaway is we've got an excellent school system, but it is consuming incrementally slightly more money as a percentage of the total budget every year. And I think that's a key bottom line takeaway. And I think the issue is we're not flush with cash here in Hamilton. You know, we really all want more revenue sources. And if that was the case, we probably would gladly be, you know, pushing more money into every department, including the schools. But anyway, I think that's just a key high-level takeaway is, you know, it's you know, just keeps creeping up. So I'll just leave that thought with everybody. And
I'd like to make a point too, you know, from the administrative side, that we've worked closely with our colleagues at the schools, and there have been some sort of gritty discussions, but you know, I think we're both sides are really committed to enhancing our partnership and trying to work together, because it is in a sense a zero-sum game that we're all funded from the same pot of money, and so it's important that we all work together, and we're committed to that.
Yeah, one final point. What we started to do over the last couple of months is we started to look at both towns and the schools on a single sheet of paper to see, you know, what's happening over in Wenham, even though that's really none of my business. But if you look at the impact of the schools to both towns, it's important to see what's happening. And I think if we can develop maybe that broader mindset, that it just helps inform decisions. I'm not saying there's an answer there, but I think allowing all three entities to see all three budgets sort of simultaneously, I think, you know, we'll just add maybe some more quality decision-making going forward. I may be wrong, but I think that's one of the things we're going to try to do.
I think the collaboration has continued to get, in each of my 3 years here, going on 4 now, the collaboration between the schools and the town has gotten a little bit better each year. I think this year's was by far the best it's been, as evidenced by the fact that at 2 joint meetings, our town asked the schools to please try and make some more cuts, and both times they did. Not as much as we maybe well wanted, but they made cuts, they made tough decisions. They stepped up and joined us in kind of sharing the pain. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the partnership that they've shown with us during the process this year. I think we're going in the right direction. I certainly understand the points raised by John McGrath. It's a concern if we don't get a hold of it going forward, but I think we're in good shape for this year. And I feel confident with the work that was done on both sides, so.
No, I'll just add that I'm in favor of this budget, and definitely agree that the collaboration this year was great, and it's been on that continuing trend, and I hope to see it continue in the off season, so to speak, because we will have our work cut out for us next year. Part of this budget is subsidized by a portion of that E&D. I know most of it went to OPEB, which is great. But that sort of puts us behind going into next year in the sense that we've got to make that up, because that's going to be built into an increase. So the more we can do, in anticipation of that in the off season, so to speak, would be very helpful going forward.
If I can rephrase that in the most basic terms for people. No, that's not, it's not a criticism of that, but just knowing where I come from and knowing where some other people come from. I just want to make that point again, that there was, the E&D is excess and deficiency, so there is extra money from prior years. That means that the increase in the school budget is not as big as it otherwise would have been. Right. And next year, that means a similar increase will cost us more. So, yeah, the Fincom has, obviously had our eyes on this and our claws into it, and have grave concerns about the year-over-year increases in the total town budget, faced with the Proposition 2.5 limitations and just the flat-out increases in the tax rate in general. But I think all of us have been satisfied, if not pleased by what the school did. And yeah, I guess I don't need to say any more. We're going to vote on it, so you'll see where everybody stands on it.
Good translation.
Thank you.
Hey, Joe, this is Bill joining. I'm on the call now.
Hey, welcome, Mr. Chairman.
Should we call a vote on it then?
Now, it will now have to be roll call.
Right, because we've got Bill.
So I have a couple just detail questions, and all those high-level comments I agree with. Can I ask a couple detail questions? So I'm looking through Appendix B, and it comes out to, right, a different number than what's in the brief summary?
Right.
Maybe, okay.
That's because the entire budget includes our spending for town departments, but it also includes a number of the articles that are going to follow. So we don't.
Gotcha. So we're not double.
This is where we made the mistake last year.
We're not double dipping.
We didn't want to double dip. Like we made the mistake last year of appropriating the whole budget in the budget, and then we also went and appropriated a bunch of money in the articles. So it was, we had to go back and reverse that at special. So we did not do that this year. That's why the number doesn't exactly match what the total spending in the budget is. Okay.
So it's a good thing.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, so all the articles that follow will make up the difference to the total bottom line budget.
Should we, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess I wonder whether we should explain that, and then also, I guess my question on that next one that that you said reads a little weird is, should there be an explanation? I know there'll be a Fincom commentary, but should there be an explanation there that explains why we're paying, why our increase is more than the overall increase to the budget? Why it's $711,000 when the increase was only a little less than $600,000. So just for the
Trying
voter.
to forecast the question, right?
So we could put a little bit of a bridge in there, Alex?
Yeah.
just maybe at the bottom of Appendix B or something?
Or you can maybe add it right at the,
Put it somewhere.
We put right in the summary or
right
whatever.
in the brief summary, right in the line that starts the HWRSD budget, maybe after period, say, the
Language about a portion.
so the $711,000 increase for Hamilton as a result of the,
Shift of the
yeah,
burden.
the population shift in the school district to Hamilton from Wenham, or something like that. Something,
Yeah.
We'll get something together.
Yeah, something like that.
we may wind up
Yeah.
answering the question on the floor of town meeting anyway, but
I think it also might be helpful to have something in Appendix B that essentially maps out where the articles that then add up to that total budget number.
Yeah.
Just so people don't do that first thing and look at 2, 3, and look at Appendix B, and they don't foot.
You have that, right?
Yeah, Alex actually crafted that today.
Yeah, we'll have that in our commentary.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say is maybe you just send it to Alex.
That's true. I mean, we could come up with it for that anyway, so.
John has already put that together, that chart, and
Yeah.
he could send that to you.
So just add it to the appendix.
just add it to the appendix?
Right,
Okay,
exactly,
so
right below
easier.
the
Great.
budget.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Did you have anything else?
I do not have anything else.
Thank you for asking that question. I meant to ask that and forgot. A little detail.
All right, so are you ready to move on, you think?
You need to vote.
We need some votes.
Mr. Chairman, online, do you want to call a vote for Article 2-3?
I'll let Jamie continue till I get into the room in about a half an hour.
Perfect.
All right. All right, all in favor of recommending approval on Article 2-3, say aye.
Aye.
Be roll
Aye.
call. Has to be roll call.
Oh, yeah,
Sean
sorry.
Farrell, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Bill?
William Olson, aye.
Jamie Knutson, aye.
All right, and we'll take the vote for FinCom. David, was that you?
Yes, that was my eye.
John McGrath, aye.
Nick Tenson, aye.
John Perulich, aye.
Christina Shank-Hargrove, aye. So, capital expenditures.
So the next article is capital expenditures, and there's Appendix D, which outlines the capital expenses that are being recommended for this year's budget.
All right, I recommend that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-4 capital expenditures.
Second.
And can I have a motion from FinCom?
Recommend that I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-4.
Second?
So, as you know, the capital committee gave us, worked with the town department heads to review the list of capital expenditures for this year and the 4 years following, and they provided a list of priorities to us. That list is pretty much intact the way you see it. Some items from their list of priorities were moved into operating expenses, so they're not in the capital plan here. And one item is included here that is the master plan for Patton Park, which is funded out of CPC. Most of the other items on this capital plan, almost all of them virtually, are being funded by free cash.
Can you just clarify for me, Joe or Alex, when I'm looking at the table here, I see fueling facility and the meter valve hydrant program are listed, but they don't have any totals or year earmarked.
Sure. We'll start with the fueling facility. That was, there was a lot of discussion about the fueling facility and whether to move forward with it this, in FY '23 as a project. There were, as you all know, there was some money appropriated in a prior fiscal year for this project. It came in, that amount came in well under the amount that would be needed to complete the project.
Right.
We had some quotes come in, to get price quotes that were just shy of $1 million. So a decision was initially made to table this until a future year. After that point in time, Tim Olson, our DPW director, tried a new angle coming at it from utilizing a federal contract. Found a price that was about $350,000 less, but still was cost prohibitive for this year. During the same discussion, Wenham, we discussed with Wenham whether they would be interested in this. They're also actively looking for a new fueling facility. And so the decision was made to pause on this until we can make a more informed decision, which I would say is the prudent approach. And then for the meter valve hydrant program, that is one of the capital costs that was moved into the operating budget. It's something that is a $30,000 expense that is going to occur every single year. This is to supply our water department with parts for water meter changeouts, hydrants, et cetera. There's also
The water study.
Well,
also
there's a
listed.
water study, yeah. So I'll get to water study in a sec. It's not on here, yeah. The NIPD's Phase 3 compliance, that's a $60,000 annual expense. And this has to do with sort of some federally mandated drainage work. And so we've moved that into operating as well, as it's a recurring expense.
Gotcha, I see the OP is operating, I'm assuming.
Exactly, yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then, so you also mentioned there was a water study that is ongoing currently in FY '22. It'll be completed before FY '23, so we pulled it out of this year's capital.
Gotcha.
The '23 plan.
That was funded by grant money,
Funded by-
Charlie,
yeah,
anyhow,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
Yep.
Alex, would you comment on the difference between water enterprise costs and town operating costs?
Sure. Water enterprise costs are costs that are funded out of the water enterprise, and so those are paid for by ratepayers. So as you use water, you are charged for that usage, and then that builds into a separate fund we call the Water Enterprise Fund, which we maintain separately from the general fund. We also can fund our budget with what's
Retained earnings?
Retained earnings, talking about it earlier, yes. And that is, those are earnings that are left over after any given year, depending on how much comes in based on the rate. And so
It's like the free cash of the Water Enterprise Fund.
there you go.
It's the unexpended fund balance for the Water Enterprise Fund.
Yeah, and so that kind of, we can soften the blow to ratepayers by using retained earnings. And so
And likewise, capital costs?
right, capital also funded out of the enterprise, so those are completely separate from the rest of the capital plan.
Thank you.
Sure.
Do we want to, on this, I'm just kind of looking over the Appendix D here for the Capcom's kind of recommendations here. And you've got, names obviously with their kind of priorities and recommendations and whatnot. And some are first names, some are both names. Do we want to kind of unify it and have either just first names or first and last names? Does it make any difference? Just make it more uniform?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Right, so it's a little more official looking other than just Bob or Dave.
Well, I mean, you're talking the far left?
Yeah, far left.
I mean, that's really an internal thing. You could probably just, hide it in the version that we put into the book.
Yeah, whatever, just so it's a little neater and,
Just for the Capcom to know, and the department heads to know who their liaisons
Yeah.
are, so there's no need to have it.
yeah, just however we present it when we, just should have it kind of uniform in whatever format we put it in.
We can hide some of the
Yeah,
stuff on the left.
that's fine, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or either just take the names off and give the kind of the departments,
Oh, it's a unified.
either way.
Yeah.
All right, any other, did you guys discuss yet anything? Did you need to ask questions?
I think we're all set.
Yeah, we did already. I actually have one. On the fuel facility, Alex, do you think we should put the 23 amount in 24?
Yeah, we definitely can. I just removed it from the
Yeah.
plan, knowing it'll be discussed, but it would make sense to leave it.
Yeah, because it now goes to 0.
Yeah, I'm kind of with John on that,
Yeah.
because it's definitely coming, whether it's a joint
Yeah, I
venture with
didn't-
Wenham or with us, and it's not going to go away. It's,
Yeah, I didn't think of it at the time. that
No, that's a good point,
Reviewed it, but probably makes sense to do that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And we can probably just check with Heather and make sure she's okay with that.
All right. Any further discussion from the select board?
not for me.
All right, we'll take a roll call vote. Start with Darcy.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye.
Bill?
Louis Mollison, aye.
And Jamie Knutson, aye.
All right, and for FinCom, we'll start with David.
Dave Wanger, aye.
John?
John McGrath, aye, sorry.
Nick Tenson, aye.
John Perlich, aye.
Christina Shank-Hargrove, aye.
The next is the water enterprise budget.
All right, I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-5, the water enterprise budget, which is also considered for our consent agenda.
Second.
Oh, can I have a motion from FinCom?
I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-5.
Second.
Yeah. So I'll also give you an update.
We'll give a little rundown about water enterprise. So like we said earlier, the water enterprise runs, an enterprise fund is intended to be sort of a self-sustaining unit where the usage fees of whatever that unit is drive the operation and it becomes self-funding. We have a healthy water enterprise right now with about we closed FY '21 with $968,000 in retained earnings. This is due to a sort of a greater income in FY '21 than was anticipated. We're not anticipating a rate change at this point into the future right now based on that. So we are looking at about 270,000 in retained earnings, in addition to the $1.7 million that we are anticipating in usage fees for the year. And so we total those out and we're looking at a total budget of $2.02 million for the year. So included in that is all of the debt service, principal and interest. That's $763,000 for the year. Indirect costs. So this is indirect costs are costs that are charged to the enterprise for service of employees that do not work directly within the enterprise. And so that is a number of different employees around the town we charge indirect costs to for their time against the enterprise, but to them in their positions.
Alex, where
Yes.
does that credit show up in the town budget?
It shows up as,
revenue. Shows up as revenue.
It's a revenue, yeah, so it shows up as, in a warrant article, the next article, there you go.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, yes. It shows up as a transfer, essentially across funds, so you transfer it from the enterprise into the general fund, and then it funds it that way. Anyhow, the enterprise is very healthy right now, and we do have financial policies in place to make sure that that stays as such. We're required by our own policies to retain at least 20% of the total value of the enterprise in retained earnings. That would put the number at about 440,000, I think, right now, and we're anticipating closing FY '22 with around $1 million in retained earnings there. So, hence the need for no rate changes right now. I also want to note one last thing, that this acts as basically a tax rate reducer. So it brings the tax rate down if you allow these indirect costs.
So the FY '23 budget is a 1.55% increase over the prior year budget, which is a very reasonable increase. And so I think we're supportive of the article.
And that's almost exclusively from that $30,000 that was transferred out of the capital plan into this. That accounts for almost that entire increase.
Oh, right.
Mhm.
That used to be in the capital plan, is now
Exactly.
moved into the operating expenses.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion, Select Board? All right, we'll take a roll call vote. Darcy?
Darcy Dale, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye.
Bill?
William Olson, aye.
All right, and Jamie Knutson, aye.
All right, and FinCom?
Dave Wanger, aye.
John McGrath, aye.
Nick Tenson, aye.
John Perlich, aye.
Christina Shank-Hargrove, aye.
And next is the annual financial actions, which include transfers from one fund to another fund.
All right, I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-6, Annual Financial Actions.
Second.
May I have a FinCom motion?
Move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-6.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All right, Select Board will take a roll call vote.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye.
Bill?
William Olson, aye.
And Jamie Knutson, aye.
And FinCom?
Dave Wanger, aye.
John McGrath, aye.
Nick Tenson, aye.
John Perlich, aye.
Christina Shank-Hargrove, aye.
And just a quick note, this is also on our consent agenda.
Next is the Article 2-7, the annual article to fund HDC from the meals tax.
I will recommend favorable action on Article 2-7, the Hamilton Development Corporation.
Second.
I'll second that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Darcy Dale seconded? Is that what they were asking?
No, I think it was
I
Bill.
think he was just
Bill
late,
trying
he was late to the, he was trying to get in there,
Yeah, you were.
trying to
Eager
participate.
to participate.
Second that.
The voice came.
May I have a FinCom motion?
I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-7.
Second.
What's that?
Any questions?
Yeah, any questions on 2-7?
I think we're good on this one, too.
Yeah.
All right, Select Board, take a roll call vote.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye.
Bill?
William Olson, aye.
Jamie Knutson, aye.
All right, and FinCom?
Dave Wanger, aye.
John McGrath, aye.
Nick Tenson, aye.
John Perlich, aye.
Christina Shank-Hargrove, aye.
Article 2-8 is the annual motion to fund $125,000 to the OPEB trust fund.
I move that we recommend, the Board of Selectmen recommends favorable action to Article 2-8, the OPEB Trust Fund. And just as a note, Article 2-7 and 2-8 are both on the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Darcy? FinCom?
May I have a FinCom motion?
I recommend that, I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-8.
Second.
And this is sort of, our, so to speak, our standard kind of transfer
Minimal.
every year, yeah.
Yep.
So I think,
Just kind of a question on, I mean, we've been at this 10, 11 years now, I think?
No.
Not quite yet.
I think
That's
about
more like
five or six years.
Though I'm looking at the 2010 appropriations for the liability, so I was gonna say like 5 years ago, so FinCom or Alex, can you tell me, I know we're on this trajectory, at what point will we kind of talk about changing this amount, increasing, decreasing, or whatever? I can't remember how long it is until we're kind of vested in.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the actual projection is. I think it's somewhere in the 2040s. We are completing our every other year actuarial study, engaging with them mid to late summer this year, and they will give us advice on what we should do, if we ought to increase that, and by how much. I would anticipate a modest increase would be in order, but nothing too crazy.
Gotcha.
After this year, maybe a lot.
Right.
The current contribution is consistent with the current actuarial study.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
Right, I think when we kind of looked at it, that's what we want to kind of stay in line with for, air quotes, perpetuity here.
Alex, when was the last study? In the recommendations right now, we have it as 2018. I just want to make sure that's accurate.
I think it was actually in 2019 where the study was completed, and they were accurate through 2022.
Okay.
So I'll verify that and modify if needed.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? All right, Select Board, all in favor of the motion?
Darcy Dale, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
John Farrell, aye.
Bill?
William Wilson, aye.
And Jamie Knutson, aye.
All right, and FinCom vote?
Dave Wanker, aye.
John McGrath, aye.
Nick Tenson, aye.
John Perlich, aye.
Christina Schenk Hargrove, aye.
-9.
2-9 is the patent homestead operating budget.
All right, I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-9, the patent homestead operating budget.
Second.
Can I have a motion from FinCom?
I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-9.
Second.
All right. Any presentation or discussion?
Yeah, I can make a couple of comments. This is John McGrath on the FinCom. There's been a lot of discussion over the last, I don't know, say 6 months regarding the patent homestead, and myself included. I'm just getting up to speed, but the last couple of years, due to COVID, has been rather disruptive relative to the patent homestead. And there's a discussion that goes back a couple of years on the FinCom, whereby we had wanted to set sort of a 3-year goal of trying to have the patent homestead become sort of self-sufficient. So a lot of discussion at the FinCom. So because there's been a fair amount of disruption, the revenues have not been there. So what we've decided to do just recently is, this being sort of the 3rd year of that 3-year window, we decided to put a more focused effort on the patent homestead, and we formed a study group, which Joe pulled together. And the study group's intended to provide sort of some more focus on where have we been, what's the current state of the homestead, what could it become, and also what it might take to reach some of those goals. So you met the first of the month of March, and we agreed that over the next 6 months, the study group would meet, ask and answer questions, assemble information, and periodically bring that back and share it formally with the board, select board. I think we're actually scheduled 3 times before the end of the year. And we felt that would probably satisfy a lot of sort of curiosity and some commitments that were made as to what potentially the town should do. So the study group's actually meeting next Tuesday for its second monthly meeting. And one of the points I made was we really sort of want to gather information from stakeholders and have a pretty crisp set of answers to questions that have been out there, and be really focused and definitive about what we plan to do. One final point is what we really want to do is sort of respond to some of the questions I think the Fincom asked, and is, can we bring back some options? So I've sort of laid out a range of maybe 5 scenarios across the spectrum, and we'll hammer that out. Sean's on the team. Tim Olson actually joined because he's supporting it. Holly Erickson as the new director. Alex and Joe were there, and myself. So I think really what we want to do is come back with a range of options, flesh them out, make sure we have all the information so we're not constantly sort of asking, and then have an informed conversation in time for next budget season. So I think Sean or someone said, hey, can we get this done by, November?
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're up to.
I think we're shooting for September.
Anyways.
If it lists till October, we're great.
Yeah. So that's the latest and greatest. Interesting history as you start to dig back into it, going back to 2012. The one point I will make, though, is the first action that the select board took back in 2012 or 13 was they took a piece of land and sold it. 12 houses were developed, and an annuity has been created, and the town's been benefiting by that annuity from all the increased taxes. So that's was sort of a wise decision that was made in the early stages of this, and that annuity is still sort of positive. But one of the things we want to be able to do is bring all that financial information back, put it up, and when you get your new board, Joe, we'll be able to let everyone take a look at it. But anyway, that was a really good decision early on because it created a tax annuity that's basically provided some pretty good funding over the years. Still, it's not breaking even on a year-over-year basis, which is really what we want to get at. So enough for me.
And John, the 3-year agreement deals with determining whether there is self-sufficiency or not.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think that was the challenge.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. And I think we can, we'll be able to, lay that out in a thoughtful way, and we can all, spend a little bit of time and focus on it. So that's really what we want to do.
Alex, is any of the transferred fund, no, let me say it this way. There used to be a fund that we were drawing from to support it.
Yep.
Does that still exist, or it looks like it doesn't, and I just want to be sure?
It's nearly exhausted.
Yeah.
It's not yet. It's
At the 8,000?
the runway is running us into the end of FY '22 on that.
Yeah.
And it will be close to gone by the end of this year.
Okay, so that next
fiscal
year's
year.
contribution is strictly from the taxpayers?
No, there is also, the patent homestead does generate revenues in sort of 3 different
No,
categories.
Let me clarify my question. There's a transfer, isn't there, from the general fund?
75,000.
75?
Yep. Right.
That's
Correct.
from taxpayers?
Yep.
It's all from the general fund.
Yep.
But
Yes.
I would remind that last year, in the midst of the pandemic, we took no money from the general fund. Part of the reason that the other fund is exhausted is we took operating funds from that fund and didn't take any money from the general fund last year. Even despite our agreement to have 3 years of general fund operating revenues, we didn't take any money from the general fund last year. So,
One thing I would pose is, and I know we've got sort of flexibility in the wording of the warrant, do we actually want to appropriate for this, or should we be using free cash? I sort of go, you can argue it sort of both ways. I do think that certainly this amount is not something I would ever recommend baking into the overall operating budget, because it's not going to be sustainable. And this is more of a one-time thing, since we're really, looking at this as worst-case scenario if we don't meet all of our revenue goals, so that we'll have enough money to fund it. And if that happens, funding in future years is going to be seriously in jeopardy. So it's not going to make a huge impact on the tax rate either way. But philosophically, I sort of wanted to throw that out there, that we might want to fund this by free cash instead.
And just for folks at home, what's the kind of tipping point where it impacts the tax rate? Is it like 50?
Well, so to give you an idea, this $75,000 appropriation will have a 4-cent increase on the average home in Hamilton, which is off the DLS's website was $629,160.
Was the average, yeah.
So this would add 4 cents to that person's tax bill of,
Or
which is
$23.
anticipated.
$23 a year.
Right, excuse me, the 4 cents per thousand, so,
right.
which is the tax rate of $17.99,
So
which
that's
is
around
what we're sitting at,
$20 a year.
Would be, exactly, yeah.
$27 a year. $23.
23, just under 24. Yeah. So, yeah.
So I just wanted to make a comment that I think this plan is really a good idea. Instead of people acting on emotion, this is an opportunity to really didactically look at what the possibilities are, and see what the town can come up with for solutions. I'm very optimistic. We'll see, but I think it's time to really look at it objectively.
To John's point on using the free cash instead of appropriating it, I mean, typically, as you said, free cash is a one-time purchase type of thing for some kind of capital or something else that we haven't foreseen, but I don't know, I guess I'm like you, I just kind of go back and forth on where it should come from.
So is there a deadline associated with this effort? Did I miss?
On
Is
the,
it 1
on the
year?
group that John and I are in, or are you talking about the
Oh,
article
I'm
now?
talking about the Patton Homestead plan that we're going to be looking at all things, as John suggested. Is there a timeline, or is there some kind of?
We're hoping to kind of do our kind of fact-finding in the next couple months here, and then start really diving in.
So
And
we'll
then
know
is-
within a year?
Yeah,
We
so our
should know
goal,
within a year
right, our
where
goal
we're
is to
gonna
kind
go.
of by September, November, have some strong recommendations for the select board to look at, and Fincom as well, to kind of crunch the numbers and see feasibility.
My only comment about using free cash, I'm not sure that would go over so well with taxpayers at town meeting, only because somebody could very easily get up and say, what do you mean free cash? You've needed funding every year. So just playing devil's advocate for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, you can sort of argue it both ways.
Right,
Since
right.
we've
Right, because you can say, well, it's
periodically
not going to
funded
increase the
it.
tax rate because we're paying it out of free cash, but
Right.
at the same time,
Yeah,
it's,
right,
You have
exactly.
to replace the free cash.
I can see why people are going back and forth. It's a tricky concept, I think.
Yeah, I think it was more in my mind, what struck me is, I wouldn't want to send the message that 75,000 is how much the town is going to necessarily have to fund Patton Homestead every year going forward.
right,
True. yeah.
right, because some people may read into that, because
Right.
our carrying cost is really about, I think it's around 30,000 for the
Right.
property. And as John said earlier, that we're, I don't want to say serendipitous, but we're bringing in income through the tax revenue from the Patton Ridge, which is 150 or something like that, about.
Sounds about right.
So we've gained some tax revenue, but we're still paying to maintain the property as far as holding the property. So
Right.
it's all the different perspectives, right, the way you look at it, so.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out, in addition to the appropriation for the fiscal 23, there's another aspect of subsidizing, that is no longer charging the indirect cost of DPW labor associated with the patent. Formerly, there was an indirect cost attribution and charge to patent, but that's been eliminated for fiscal 23.
Right.
So that's sort of a subsidizing effect in addition to the appropriation.
Yeah.
I understand your point, David, but at the same time, you know, the chargeback in that case was artificially inflating what it looked like it cost to run the homestead.
Right.
We were basically taking money out of one of our own pockets and putting it in our other own pocket, and it really didn't affect anything except that it made it seem like we were tracking the expense better. The fact of the matter is, with the Water Enterprise Fund, that's a different fund, it's raised a different way. This money is all coming from the same general fund, so to charge an indirect cost that way was misleading, and like I said, artificially inflated what it cost them to actually run the property, so.
But we are committed.
We are, right, to show.
Analyze,
right,
what are we really spending?
Right,
Right, because
absolutely.
there is some cost.
Oh, there absolutely is.
It's just the formula didn't work, and it was
Yeah.
calculating what.
And
what it
that's
actually
really,
cost us.
really, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the bottom line is having the patent homestead
Hey, Bill.
under town management and control is a real challenge. It's an unusual situation, and if you really want to have that facility compete with other conference facilities or other like-minded facilities, it's gonna be a real challenge to try to do it. So anyway, hopefully.
Without debating the wisdom of indirect cost, we are, John, as I understand it, going to keep track through Tim Olson of the use of DPW personnel.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah, I spoke to Tim about it as part of the study group, and he's more than happy to sit down with us and give us a real fair view of what's the town really spending in terms of hours and labor and effort. And anyway, there's a lot of chapters to this book, and
It's good.
we want to write them all and satisfy every one of the stakeholders here or across the town. So we don't want to sort of keep circling for the next, say, 5 to 10 years, so.
So Alex or Joe, any input on whether to fund it through free cash instead?
You know, our recommendation is to fund it out of the raise appropriate. It's more consistent with our financial policies. I don't really see this as a free cash type expenditure, but, you know, if the boards tell us they want us to do it another way, we'll.
So John, you're kind of saying it's a one-time thing because we're not gonna continue to pay, basically, we're gonna change something next year.
That's right, yeah.
Which doesn't make it, right now, it's still an annual.
Yeah, and we can communicate that other ways. Like, I don't feel strong enough because I can argue the other side as well. So I'm fine if we want to keep it as an appropriation. But I think it's something we will, through our commentary or end at town meeting, sort of communicate that this is not the expectation, that this is an annual subsidy at this level.
Right.
I think we just need to be clear with that, because like you said, people are going to read into it. 75,000 is going to happen every year because we have appropriated a lot for this over the last 10 years or whatever, so.
Right.
And the flip side of that is we have the property right now, it needs to be maintained, and we've reviewed the request, and I think we need to do this.
Right.
Now, the amount that's requested now. All set?
All set. Let's call the vote.
So make some comments, but I think we will vote, and we will discuss as part of the study that we're going to do, because I have some opinions on how to sort of move it forward. But,
All right.
but I think it's the right thing. I think it's the right thing to do it to appropriate funds for it and not take it out of free cash until we have the study complete.
Yeah.
So I agree with that assessment.
The select board no longer needs a roll call vote. You're all here.
All right.
Yeah. All those in favor of recommending favorable action on this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Unanimous.
All right, so we'll take the FinCom vote.
Dave Wanger, aye.
John McGrath, aye.
Nick Tenson, aye.
John Perlich, aye.
And Christina Schenk-Hargrove, aye. Before we move on, Joe?
Yep.
I noticed that there's a comment, I'm trying to cut a glimpse of it.
It's not supposed to, we're not supposed to have, these are supposed to be turned off, sorry about that.
That's right, I think it was,
Supposed to raise
Oh,
hands.
it's Mary Alice. Can we be more specific about who's making the motions? Mary Alice is having trouble hearing who's making the motion.
Yeah, we can do that.
So-
and for FinCom, I can say John Prulidge made the motion every single time.
And Nick Tenson made
seconded
second
the
every
motion
time.
every
Yeah,
single
we
time.
can say that.
And we'll
Sean
keep
made
doing
the
that.
motion every time.
And we've been
Darcy's-
alternating, except you
And I
made
did it, I
one.
did it once.
You try.
I tried.
Tricked us.
I appreciate you being my patience on that.
Joe, did you say anything about 2-10 yet?
Not yet, just getting
Okay.
ready to. All right, so Article 2-10 is the annual motion to fund the stabilization fund. This is a free cash appropriation. Our financial policies require us to fund a general stabilization fund in the amount of 5% of the general operating budget. This year, it's a small amount, relatively small amount, it's $20,000, because we had reached 5% last year, and this year, we only have to grow the stabilization fund by an amount related to that, so.
That's good.
The adjustment is in correlation with the,
Yes. Yes.
with our
Policy.
It's actually slightly more.
As-
We'd really need like $18,000 and change, and we figured
Right.
we'll just round it off to 20
Yeah.
and give ourselves a little
So
extra
what is the
cushion
total
there.
amount of the stabilization fund?
It's in its 1.8 million.
1.8.
Oh, 1.8, I see,
Yeah. And so, as noted, as our budget grows, as it is like to do, then the 5% number
Right, we
will
gotta
grow
kind of
with
keep up with it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And free cash doesn't affect the tax rate.
Correct.
All right, so this is Sean Farrell. I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-10 Stabilization Fund.
Rosie Kennedy, seconds.
Do we have a motion for FinCom?
Move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-10.
Nick Tenson, second.
Any
Discussion? Nope.
No, so we established this like 3 or 4 years ago, correct? We've
Yep.
not spent any of it, correct, to date?
No.
Correct.
And we're not forecasting spending of it next year as well either, right? I mean, so it's nothing that we are going to touch in the near future as far as current plan is.
Yeah, it's a rainy day fund, or
Yeah.
it's for extraordinary expenses. There are a number of ways we could look at it. We also have a capital stabilization fund. We are not appropriating money to the capital stabilization fund this year because we have exceeded our minimums required by our financial policies, and they are still sufficient. So we're not looking to add any more to that right now.
Just a side note, when Joe was talking about their capitalization stabilization fund and this fund, I'm just really kind of proud that we finally got it together and got these financial policies going, and that we have these two funds, because these are really some good safety nets that we have. And, now it's kind of, not heaven forbid something happens, but when something happens, we have a way to kind of manage it. So I think it's really been great to have these two funds.
Joe, if something came up and we had to dip into these funds, what's the process for doing that?
It would require a town meeting vote, and I believe, Tom, 3/4?
Two-thirds.
Two-thirds to appropriate from the general stabilization.
Any stabilization fund, I think, is 2/3, correct?
Yeah, I see the 2/3 to put money into it. I was
For the most
curious if it
part,
was
right.
2/3 to take money out of it as well.
But, even if you didn't have a bylaw by statute, it's a 2/3 vote to appropriate from the stabilization fund.
So, for instance, I'm going to call it the Turf Stabilization Fund. I don't know what it's called. Is there a different name for
I
it?
think it's called the Turf Field Stabilization Fund, yeah.
So that one, too, that we have the $500,000, and would be a 2/3 vote if we wanted to move something out of that.
Be good to have, like, when we're beyond, but it'd be good to have like a summary of all our different funds so the public understand how well we are protected and conservative with our monies. But because we have a lot of different funds out there, right? So,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
the new, so, we're talking through the budget that we're gonna use to get to town meeting floor, but that we're working on a new budget instrument, and now there'll be a better explanation of our various funds in the new budget instrument, which will be much more user-friendly.
how many different
Right,
funds
kind
are
of
you
the
tracking, Alex?
Yeah, I think when we do
Track
that,
dozen, probably?
in that,
Yeah, there's a number of them. I'd also like to point out, April 26th of this year, we're having Bartholomew, who's a financial advisor that we use for our trust funds, come into the select board to give a presentation to update.
Well, the chair hasn't said that yet, but we're planning.
Excuse me, I'd like to announce. Yeah.
Well, I just recommend, it's a good idea, so I will support that.
To bring sort of transparency and a little clarity on, how the money's invested and sort of the operation of those funds. I'd also like to note, if we do ever take money out of any of the stabilization funds, that there's sort of an internally mandated way for us to pay it back over a short duration. I think it's 2 years for general and 3 years for capital. So if we do dip into it, we do have to pay it back to
right,
get back
to get it
our
up to that level, right.
Exactly.
And just a comment on that budget document that they'll be working on over the next year probably or so. It's kind of a template, but we're going to customize it. And I think part of it that's going to be the biggest benefit is that our citizens can read it and understand it. And there'll be definitions like what a stabilization fund is, what an enterprise fund is, et cetera. So when they look at it, they understand all the kind of nomenclature in it.
And yeah, I think to add to it also, it's interesting because we call it the minimum amount, but it's also our goal. We've never talked about exceeding our goal. So sort of, I don't want the public to think that we're just only meeting the minimum amount. We're actually meeting our goal, which happens to also be the minimum amount. So we've never talked about exceeding that goal, but we could in the future. But I just want the public to know that we're hitting our 100% hitting our goal. It's not the minimum amount. So
If at a point in the future where we have the ability to add to the stabilization fund beyond our goal, I'd recommend that we try to do that as well.
Okay.
We haven't, the last couple of years been a little difficult. Hasn't been we haven't needed to do it yet, but it would be a smart thing to do for the future, is to kind of plan to add a little bit more. Doesn't need to be dramatically more, but to just keep building it up a little bit over time.
Ready?
yeah,
Ready?
For the select board, all those in favor of supporting favorable action on this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
And FinCom will take the roll call vote.
Dave Wanker, aye.
John McGrath, aye.
Nick Tenson, aye.
John Perlich, aye.
And Christina Shankar-Bro, aye.
All right. Article 2-11, the first of four community preservation budget articles. This is the community preservation budget article. It appears as Appendix G in the appendices. The first 4 items in the appendix are what relates to Article 2-11, and you did want to consider this to the consent agenda as well, so bear with them.
I move for the select board that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-11, the community preservation budget.
Second.
Second from Darcy.
Can I have a motion from FinCom, please?
Yeah, John Perlich, I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-11.
Nick Tenson, second.
And just for kind of discussion purpose, this is a little bit different this year, correct?
Correct.
And so what we're doing basically is, I'm going to call it housekeeping, and it's basically separating the monies that we receive from the state and our taxpayers that go into the different buckets for CPC, so it's a little more cleaner accounting. Is that kind of
Yeah,
basic
that's
summary of
accurate.
it?
So to add a little context, the Community Preservation Act requires 10% of your amounts raised on the CPA to be put into certain spending categories, and those are community housing, historic preservation, and open space and recreation. And so rather than appropriating directly from the revenues tied to those things, which is how things have been done, we're recommending appropriating a 10% amount into each of those categories and then appropriating out from those categories, if that makes sense. And then the remaining 70% will go into the Community Preservation Committee's unreserved fund balance.
Community preservation what?
Unreserved fund.
Unreserved fund balance.
So
That's the
if we have kind of monies left over, they go into our unreserved fund from the previous years.
That's managed by the Community Preservation Committee.
So this is something that annually we'll have this sort of housekeeping.
Correct, yeah. And so you'll note in Appendix G, the very first action is a 5% administrative charge. So that makes up that $31,710. The next item is for debt service for principal and interest for the Sagamore Hill Conservation Capital Project from a few years ago. And the next 3 are each of those 10%. It's actually more like 11.5%, but if we undershoot on revenues, we'll have to clean house again next year, so this gives us a small cushion to
Give us a little
hopefully
buffer.
not have to do that again. Yep.
part of the reason for recommending a change in this way is that if you appropriate just directly from the revenues, and then the project doesn't get spent, then you've technically fallen in non-compliance with the state law and not put money into the 10% aside like you're supposed to. So by appropriating it to the individual accounts, you've covered yourself that way, and you don't have to go back and do, you know,
The cleanup afterwards.
afterwards. So.
Is this where the town hall 1.4 million? Well, wait a minute now. Is this where the money that was going to go to town hall goes back, or?
No.
I know that we had some
So
money set
it's,
aside.
that money's still in, it's,
It's in the
and I kind of say
CPC.
encumbered still, and it's the bonding on it, and we
Yeah.
wouldn't be paying on that bond, I think, until, do you know, Lori, is it, if we actually went through with it, it'd be November, so it would be the first payment when we actually initiated it? Is that accurate somewhat,
Isn't that
I think?
dash 14, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
That has-
We didn't, yeah, we didn't use it.
And we didn't put money into historic preservation because we were spending that money. When we spend it, we have to do housekeeping and put that in.
Right.
And this move will make sure that we don't do that.
That'll
again.
see it.
Right.
Okay, good.
Yes. And 2-14 is to satisfy last year's requirement that we did not, we did not satisfy.
So I actually don't think we should break these articles up by putting this one into the consent.
I was just gonna say the same thing, just because I think and just between us here, there's still some confusion, I think. So I think if we need to get all of our kind of verbiage right, so FinCom or Select Board can speak to it and say why we're doing it.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I don't think it's gonna take very much. I mean, we call this housekeeping, and just making sure we're crossing our Ts and dotting our Is with putting stuff in the right buckets.
Yeah, but I think it takes a couple sentences of explanation.
Yeah. So I guess follow up on that, do we want to add anything into the brief summary then as well?
I mean, it would be nice to tell how much this generates for the CP, you know, the fund, right, the CPC? I mean, we talk about 2%, we don't talk about the money generates, right? So there's a dollar amount that actually generates, right?
Well, it's, I mean, it varies, because it's.
But it's a range, right, so somewhere, I mean,
Right.
you could say, right?
We're always a year behind.
Yeah, you could say
Right.
that. But it would be nice to understand that, because it's a significant portion of funds that get put back into the community.
Right, what was the amount from last year?
I think it was like 611.
Was it 611?
We average somewhere between 4-something to 600, depending on the year. This has been a bigger year for
Yeah,
us.
Jay
because the
posted
revenue's
it.
been
Right.
up.
He did an annual report in August.
Yeah.
And it's on their website, and it speaks precisely to what you're talking about.
And, yeah, I mean, we have the discussion every year about whether, and I know that they look at that analysis of going to 3%, you generate more money, and I don't think we're ready to do that yet, but it's always something we should be thinking about, being proactive about, that the more that we put away, the more the match is from the state, so. It's a complicated equation, but it does become, if we have something to spend it on, it becomes a good way to fund that process and to sort of finance it, if you will.
You know, we could add some of that commentary in the FinCom write-up. if
Yeah,
you'd like.
a description of the state match is important. I think people may not realize, but the higher that you charge locally, then the higher the amount the state will match. And they won't match you in 1-to-1, but they will, they do sort of rounds of matching. So all communities that match 1%, 2%, or 3%, they all get the 1% funding round. And then everyone who does 2 or 3 gets the 2% round. And the state determines that annually based on how much they can afford to match. It was intended initially to be, I think, a direct match, and then over the years it has dwindled.
Is Jay planning to make a report at town meeting?
I don't think so.
Because he typically has. He typically has.
Really?
If I recall correctly, he usually.
He
puts out
usually,
reports.
he usually does.
Typically
He
does,
usually
yeah.
moves, he usually moves most of the questions from the CPC, so.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah, we will,
I think it'd be good to have Jay provide kind of the background for why we're moving this that way, and I almost think it'd be better received as,
Yeah.
as a part of the report.
I think that's good. So maybe, John, you're the CPC liaison, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you can kind of reach out with Lori and Jay and kind of get your heads together
Yeah.
about what might go in the FinCom report and
Yeah.
what he may put in his report, so we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
in my opinion, we definitely would want a recommendation from CPC on the floor of town meeting.
Is that generally what is done?
Didn't they give that on last
Yeah,
Thursday?
they voted the recommendations at their last meeting, and we have them, they'll be
Yep.
included in the warrant. as
Yep,
well.
they're all recommended, so.
Any further discussion? All right, for the select board, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed?
And for FinCom? And FinCom?
Dave Wanger, aye.
John McGrath, aye.
Nick Tenson, aye.
John Perlich, aye.
Christina Shankargrove, aye.
The next item is another community preservation article. It's Article 2-12, in the amount of $30,000 for the Patton Park Master Plan.
I like this one.
All right, I move that the select board recommend favorable action on Article 2-12.
And I'm going to second that, Rosie Kennedy.
John Perlich, I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-12.
Nick Tenson, second.
So Sean, a little history on who's going to manage those, who's going to manage, is that part of our master plan, or who's going to manage those funds and
So
sign the,
this grant request was brought to us by the rec department.
Sean
and
Timmons?
Sean Timmons.
And Tim Olson.
And Tim Olson, sorry, thank you, Lori. And Tim Olson, so basically, they're gonna be looking holistically at Patton Park and, I guess, future kind of development, for lack of a better word, but maintaining the park and making it the best for our community.
That's great.
If I could offer a little color. Sean and Tim came up with the idea because they've been talking about a number of different various requests that have been made to them, either or both of them, at different times for different amenities and different features to be included at Patton Park, and trying to figure out how to try to accommodate all those and determine which ones were the best and which ones were cohesive and went together, and how to utilize land properly. They felt that they needed the help of some experts and really some more community buy-in, as opposed to just responding individually to each request and trying to accommodate them. So this plan will allow us to hire a professional park developer that will be able to help guide all these things and bring them together in a way that the park will look even more like the gem that it is than it does today. So
I agree. I mean, it's a gem of our community, the center of our community. We've done a lot of improvements. We've done the resurfacing of the courts. We've done the new basketball hoops. We've done the benches. We've done the bath. We've done the scoreboards, the bathrooms, the dugout. So it'd be good to have a master plan so we can kind of see, looking forward. We're not doing these little pieces and parts. We're doing sort of building towards a greater good. So I agree. It's a good plan.
Those are mostly maintenance, but we've had
Right.
people that want us to include fire pits near the lake so that
Pave the road.
Pave the road. Other people that want us to build a better snack stand or
Signage, et cetera.
signage or bathrooms. So how to incorporate all of those things in a way that that accentuates all that's good about the park, as opposed to detracting from it by just having it too busy.
So the consultant would be a landscape architect, would be a master planner, would be who are they looking at for?
Yeah.
Big designer.
An open space land designer person, not necessarily just a landscape architect, but it's certainly an element of it, so.
Yeah, I think this is a really nice plan. It's a really, really positive use of funding. It's very responsive to, as Joe says, various citizens who have brought ideas and desires for the park. So I think it's a nice beginning to a community effort.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
All right. All those in favor of select board say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? So we have it unanimous from the select board.
We have a vote from Fincom.
Dave Wenger, aye.
John McGrath, aye.
Nick Tenson, aye.
John Prulich, aye.
Sorry, Christina Schenk Hargrove, aye.
Okay, Article 2-13 is another community preservation account request. Open Space and Recreation Project to appropriate $35,061.52 from the Community Preservation Open Space and Recreation Reserve account and $114,938 from the Community Preservation Unreserved Fund balance, and for a total of $150,000 to fund the Community House Centennial Square project.
I move that, and for Mary Alice, is Sean Farrell again. I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-13, the Community Preservation Community House Centennial Square project.
Darcy Dale, second.
We have a motion from Fincom, please.
John Prulich, I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-13.
Nick Tenson, second.
And just add a little context to it, this is basically kind of, I'll call it the step in front of the community house to basically put some hardscaping and some more landscaping in there with some benches and a little fence around it so more people can congregate there.
So can you talk about the funds real quick? Why are they, can you explain just the funds, why we're going against two funds?
So let's see, the 35,000 would come from that kind of bucket that we're talking about, and that would probably expend that bit of that bucket for the year, and then the rest would come out of the unreserved fund, which is our kind of what we'll call the CPC free cash.
Well, thanks for coming, Jeannie.
Yeah.
You need that, Joe?
Yeah.
See you.
Are you gonna be here a couple days?
Yeah, at least I'd say till the end of the week.
Yeah. Good luck with everything.
Thanks.
I'm not,
Who's
set up this meeting?
Who's the host?
Who's the host?
I don't know.
So you're heading over to the emergency room?
One more stop.
Mr. Bowler, Mr. Bowler, could you mute?
There we go.
Thanks, Bill.
So I'll start, I guess, the conversation. So while I'm a big supporter of the community house, I'm not necessarily at the point right now where I'm in favor of spending money. We have such things to do for the community assets, community buildings that are, especially town hall, that we're trying to raise funds for. And so if it's a choice between, raising money for town hall, raising money for the community house, I would choose to raise money for town hall. So, I went online to kind of see how their finances were, and they really don't have, they don't really have an open book online on what their books are and how they raise money, how they spend money, how their fiduciary responsibilities to the community. So I really need some more information from them before. We've given a lot of money to them over the years, which I think is good, and then we've helped them and they've helped us. But at this point, I'm just, I would need more information and more discussion and more debate to sort of be behind this. Like I said, once I support them, but we have Patton Park right next door, a lot of open space. We're trying to improve that with a $30,000 master plan, sort of usurp that and spend $150,000 to do a park next door. Seems to be sort of against what we're trying to do. So, I'd welcome further discussion, but right now, I didn't think it would actually get approved as a project. When I was following it early on, I thought that it would not get approved because I didn't think it would qualify. But I understood that late in the game it sort of did, and I'm not sure if you were part of that sort of review on why it qualified versus because it was open space.
There was a question, sure. It was
Tom, if I could,
I think you have to go.
maybe just come to the mic since there's folks at home.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom McEnany, KP Law, Town Council. There was a question that came up during the course of this, whether or not, because the building itself is a historic building, and the question came up whether or not you could use funds from the Community Preservation Open Space and Recreation Reserve account, as well as from the unreserved fund balance for the purposes of funding this project. And in reviewing the specifics of the project, which does not involve any construction work on the building itself, which is the only historic part of the property, and it involves the creation of this new area outside of the community house, which would constitute a recreational area. In our opinion, there was no restriction on the use of the funds from these buckets for that particular project. In other words, you weren't limited to only using funds from the historic preservation bucket for the purposes of funding this project. Ultimately, the decision whether to fund the project or not is clearly a decision that's made by the CPC as well as town meeting.
Meets the requirements of the bylaw.
But it does, yeah, for purposes of, there was no limit. Essentially, that was the question that we were asked, is there a limitation on whether, or on the use of community preservation, open space and recreation reserve account funds for the purposes of funding this project? And in our opinion, you can use funds from that bucket if the town so desires.
Okay. And then just to put a little bit more on it, the board, the CPC, had a bit of a discussion about whether it was a historical kind of a bucket or open space and recreation, and no one really felt comfortable in the historic bucket, as Tom kind of alluded to, because it was a new construction. It wasn't a repair or rehabilitation of something. It was constructing a new space that in the grounds of the community house aren't really the historical part. The building is the historical part. So this the board felt would fit more into the open space / recreation, because it was as they say, a gathering place for the community.
Yeah, I, as Sean mentioned, I'm the liaison from the Fincom to CPC, and I sat through the presentation. And I think I got comfortable with the legal issues, so I think those have been satisfied. It really comes back to the concept of what they're trying to do, all right? And the way I looked at it is the total project's over $400,000. The community is actually, they've launched a fundraiser. It's called the Pave the Way, which is citizen fundraising. And both town CPCs are slated to contribute. But where I got comfortable with was what's the concept? What are they trying to do for the town? And what they're trying to do is create a more magnetic convening point, meaning right there, they're inviting more people to come and congregate out in the public, make it more comfortable. And the way they described it was it's sort of a multi-generational. Think about it. What's right across the street? Well, you have the Council on Aging. So on any given day, would you be able to get some kids from Winthrop and some folks, myself included, from the Council on Aging, meeting in a new first-class landing spot right in the heart of town? So I got comfortable with the legal piece, but then I got really comfortable with what are they trying to achieve and what's the concept. And while I firmly get, Bill, your comments about the town hall, this would serve a lot more people potentially than the town hall, So I said, okay, 150,000, other projects. So I kind of went through sort of that mental comparison as I listened to it. But anyway, I'd advise people to, go out and read the minutes of the meeting where they presented it, and either get comfortable or not comfortable with the overall concept and what are they trying to achieve. And, I could see myself going from Patton Park with my grandson and then going across the street, maybe get a coffee down at local place and go sit down in front of the new area. So anyway, that's a little bit of a sales pitch, but they got me as I listened to it. So that was my takeaway.
Yeah. I think 150 is really high, and I think it could be done for much less if that's their goal. I also have strong feelings about private nonprofits getting such large sums of money.
Yeah, I completely get it.
No, I'm just saying for the public so that they can think about these things too.
Yeah.
But it just seems to be a really large sum of money And it seems that it could be done for much less, and maybe it could be done in a phased way, so they don't have to have all the money all at once. Maybe they could do a little bit and see how many people are interested, and then maybe they could go to phase 2 and so on and so on. And that way, you know, it's done carefully, and maybe it's not gonna take off. Maybe they're gonna find that the senior center is where everyone's gathering if they want intergenerational, which is right across the street. So maybe we could add money. Why don't we take the 150 and do something with the senior center?
Yeah.
I mean, because the seniors have been ignored for a long time, and it just, you know, I don't like giving away, literally giving away $150,000 to a nonprofit. Just strikes me as not being responsible, especially when they can do it either in a phased approach or scale it down, see how things
Yeah,
go.
I mean, we could go back and say, hey, give us 3 options, a $100,000 project, a $200,000 project, and a $400,000, and then, so there definitely are options. All I'm saying is I got comfortable with the concept of what they're trying to, what the end result is.
That's a great concept.
At $400,000, that's a pretty big project.
I agree with you. I'm in favor of the concept, in favor of the community house. I'm not in favor of the dollar amount that they're asking. So, and that's my struggle. And I'd like to hear more from you. Usually, we always sort of rely on Fincom to help us sort of with this stuff. I'm not sure if you've had further discussion within your meetings on this topic or not.
I have not heard, I was a bit blindsided by seeing this, and I don't know, maybe it was brought up when I wasn't there, but I haven't, so I'm not aware of it. But it strikes me that we're doing, my initial reaction is gut, not, I didn't, so I don't know what the project looks like. But we're doing an analysis of Patton Park.
Right.
And isn't that where our center is? And wouldn't that be a place to create a center for the town? I'm not discounting that there may be a transitional place that goes out to more of a, and you know, you're thinking of Honeycomb or someplace where you can get a cup of coffee, but those are kinds of things that are, I think let's see what we come up with the Patton Park first. And I think Bill's concern about the town hall is also valid, and I think that's a good place to put the money.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to it, and I would not support this.
Do we know anything in terms of Wenham's potential contribution?
Lori, do you want to just come up to the mic and speak to it? Thank you.
So the ask from the community house was 150 to Hamilton and 75 to Wenham. And those were both approved by the respective community preservation committees.
Has Wenham voted yet?
Yes, it's already been
The
approved.
Wenham Board of the Select Board, is it Select Board?
Yes.
Yeah.
Has the Wenham Select Board voted?
That I do not know.
Oh, to recommend it or not
Recommend favorable
recommend it?
action or not?
I don't know.
My thought right now is that, like you said, a little blindside, I didn't do enough research. I don't want to come out negatively. I'd rather say we either make a recommendation for the floor of town meeting, or we get to, if we can vote one more time before before the meeting, but I don't think I'm ready to vote. If I voted tonight, it would not support it, so I think I'd rather do some more research and have some more discussion. So
Yeah,
my recommendation is that we pause the vote for favorable action till next meeting or town meeting floor. That's my recommendation. Unless people have more debate they want to do today.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I see all your points, and I can't help but agree with them. We do have finite amount of money. We do have the town hall, but even beyond that, I think about the potential for Patton Park. We're putting a significant amount of money this year, and then if we look ahead to FY24, we're talking about investing a significant amount of money. So I do think we should think about it more carefully. It is a lot of money.
Yeah, I agree.
The money, the $30,000 we're spending just on the design for Patton Park is a drop in the bucket for what we're going to need to execute the plan.
Can I make a comment on that?
Wait, would you wait 1 second? Sorry.
Okay.
Joe, you were going to make a comment.
I was
sorry.
just going to say, if you delay a vote tonight, it will go into the warrant and go to the printers without a vote.
And we've done this before.
Right, yep, just clarifying that point.
Yeah, it would just say, I mean, I would say if we don't vote on it tonight, it will say the select board, and if FinCom
Will recommend-
chooses to follow suit, will recommend it at town meeting.
Town meeting, yeah. Thank you,
Just a
yes.
couple of things, if I could
Yes.
add to clarify. So the Patton Park Master Plan, I don't believe that Tim and Sean are looking at further town monies for a lot of that. It's because people want to make donations.
Right.
And they want to get their hands around the plan. So I think that's partly why community preservation was supporting it for the plan and not looking at an extensive amount of money to add to the park.
Right, it wasn't a future, we're looking at X hundreds
Yeah.
of thousands for the park.
Right.
It was see how we can manage these donations from Little
Donations,
League, et cetera.
right.
Well, but in fairness, we're doing a master plan study right now, it's not done. We're gonna pay $30,000 on this plan, so it makes, what may come out of that may be, you know, what would be really great is to do
Right,
X,
there may be
Y,
other
and Z.
recommendations, right?
So we don't know that yet, but I agree, but we don't know until we do the study, but, sorry.
No.
Okay, no, thank you, it's good points.
Can I ask one question, just if anyone knows? Is there a history of the town financially supporting the community house?
Yes.
Yes.
And Lori can probably mention how many times we've given them a grant. It's been a handful of times.
So, 20 years ago or so, when this first came up, and we had a couple of different projects. One was the Tabernacle at Asbury Grove. One was some preservation monies for the community house. And we discovered it does not have to go to just town properties. Okay, it can go to any other buckets under those three areas. So the town has approved those different projects in the
Yeah,
past.
we've even
And
given
then
money to
also at-
Eagle Scout projects and the like over the years.
Yeah, also, of course, the First
It's clock tower.
Congregational Church.
That was a
yes.
debate, right? That wasn't, that was $18,000,
Yeah.
that was a big debate, or whatever that was, but.
So,
80.
but
that
80,000,
has
yeah.
passed in the past, just
Yeah,
so.
so, but it's been numerous projects and tens of thousands, $100,000. So, and I think you went, Sean, you at some point gave me those data points.
Yeah, I
but-
can't remember the breakdown of how much we've given them over the years, but I think this was their third or
That is-
fourth grant.
Yeah. It is all on the website.
I'd like to
in
see
the-
more of their financials if they're going to be taking money. It'd be good to know how they're spending the money that they're raising and so I don't know, I just want to look into that. So I'm going to give us some time to do that work and we'll.
And I don't know if everyone
Okay.
caught Lori's last little point there, was it, and John had mentioned earlier, if you go to the CPC website, on the town hall website, or
Tells you what we've
you can
given.
see the CPC report, and all those past grants are all listed in that report, so you
Yeah.
can tally it all
They're
up
all,
and see.
they're by fiscal year, they're by the organization, or the property, it's all broken out.
Yeah, I think
that
the
way.
only other organization we've given more times to is the American Legion.
Yes, right, that's another, of course, that is a town building.
Right.
Yep, that
But
makes a difference.
we have given a lot to that, too.
Well, it's important to build community, and this is part of that, so I think we need to leave it on a positive note, but I don't think right tonight to, so the select
So
board,
we
it
just-
sounds like the select board's we agree, sort of a straw vote, we're gonna wait till,
So we're not going to vote on it?
the select board is not gonna vote on it, but you can choose to vote on it.
So, FinCom, are you ready to vote tonight? And actually, we have a meeting on the schedule for tomorrow night, so we could vote tomorrow night if we prefer to do that.
Yeah, I would prefer more discussion on it. I don't know, I missed last week's meeting, so I don't know if it came up at all there.
Not really, I think we can use more discussion.
D-
yeah.
Does FinCom have the CPC documents that we've gotten for the grant request? Do you guys have copies of that? And that might be helpful to see what their application is and stuff like that. Joe, could you,
We can, yeah,
or could you do that? That'd be great.
yeah, we can get it.
That might give you a little more information.
So we will hold, not vote tonight, we will try to vote tomorrow, so our vote will be in
In the warrant.
time.
I think your vote will help inform us as well, too, so thank you.
Shoot, Ash.
And so, and I'll just add, like a lot of other people, it's a great idea. I would champion the idea for the community to get behind. I am a little more hesitant about the CPA funds going towards it. And I get, one of my biggest questions, because it is a separate nonprofit and all that, is, like, are we, like, most donors, like, they give, and it's not, you know, not restricted and things like that. I feel like that if the town is putting money in, there should be like, okay, we get an easement to use, I'm being sort of facetious, but we get an easement to use the property. Or like, there's something the town sort of, there's something that's, I don't want to say enforceable, but, you know.
No, I if I can interject
Like the
just for a
town-
second, Jimmy, I think that like when we did the Tabernacle years ago, now if there's a rain date for the Patton Park concerts, they can be at the Tabernacle, and that was part of the agreement when we restored the Tabernacle. So there could be a vis-à-vis some similar thing. Sorry to
Talking
interrupt.
about some kind of guarantee of a benefit to the town in general.
Something, because I think if we want to use
In
this.
that, and they said, oh, we're gonna charge for it, or you
Right, if we
can't
want to
it.
use the space, we'd have to charge us for it.
Right.
Yeah, similar to the library, which kind of chaps me too, so, but nonetheless.
You'd have a select board meeting out in front of, you know.
Right, we
community
can have
house.
it in the square.
No, it's all good discussion, and I think we unfortunately need to have it quick sooner than later, but I think we have time to do it before town meeting.
Winding down, Article 2-14 is the community preservation transfers. This speaks to what we talked about at the beginning, where we've changed the way we're allocating money into the different buckets. This actually seeks to correct a mistake that was made, well, not a mistake, but corrects what happened in FY '21 when you tried to meet your 10% minimum by funding the debt service payment for the town hall project, which didn't go forward, so therefore you didn't actually appropriate anything to that 10% requirement. So we would go back and make that transfer now.
I have a point of information. We had, this is, I guess, order. We had voted to approve this. Do we have to do something to not approve? I'm talking about the previous one, 213.
Oh, because we got motions on
We have
that.
a motion on the table. Do we have to take that motion off somehow?
Table?
I think you just tabled
We
it.
tabled it.
We just tabled it.
That's fine. I
Motion
didn't know.
tabled.
Motion tabled.
Point of information.
Yes, no, thank you.
No, that's a good point of order, though.
Ours should be tabled too.
Yeah, well, I'll just kind of, just for point of order, I'll move that we table 2-13 for future recommendation. All right, 211, I move. 214, sorry, I'm in my time machine here. I move that the select board recommend favorable action on Article 2-14, community preservation transfers.
Is that yours turn? Okay. Rosie Kennedy, aye. A second. Sorry.
Getting ahead of yourself, right?
Fincom.
Can I have a motion from FinCom?
Yeah, John Prulidge, I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 2-14.
Nick Tenson, second.
All right, further discussion. So this is just bookkeeping?
Just housekeeping, yeah.
Clean up.
And it doesn't affect tax rate or anything like that, it's just sort of,
The money's already in the, in one account, we're just moving it to.
Do we feel that this could be a consent agenda item, or do we need a different type of a, it's just a simple majority, right?
simple
Tom?
majority, yeah.
Do you think we feel comfortable putting it in the consent? I know Jay had asked for 211, but I think 214 fits it better.
We can't, someone wants to hold, they can hold it, I don't think anyone's gonna hold it, so I recommend that we put it in the consent, because it's just, once again,
It's housekeeping transfers.
It's moving
so.
money from one pocket to the other pocket, it's not spending money or.
Sure.
Allocating.
Yeah, I mean, my only other thought is the same thought as earlier, that to keep them all together so that we can explain it once and
On
then
one
this-
slate.
This is,
Otherwise, we'll be going back and forth.
but I don't know if it'll just, yeah, I don't know, I don't feel strongly about that.
This is a sort of a side piece of that, I'm not sure if it's sort of related to the others CPC stuff, but I'm fine either way, I mean, we can put it in consent, I'm gonna hold it and we can take it out, so. But the more we can do in the consent, I think the better for.
Yeah.
I'd recommend putting it in the consent agenda.
Do a vote?
Do you need a vote?
Okay, let's move on my previous motion, then I'll make another motion to put it in the consent.
That needs to be a motion to put stuff in the consent? I don't think that need to be a motion. That's just a
Put the other
discussion.
things in without a real, well, yeah, actually, no, you did. You
No,
made-
I
you
moved to
made
put it in
motion
the
at
consent.
beginning,
Yeah, I moved to put them in the consent earlier,
Right, so, any further discussion on 2-14?
Nope.
So for the select board, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous?
FinCom may have a roll call vote?
Dave Wanger, aye.
John McGrath, aye.
Nick Tenson, aye.
John Prulich, aye.
And Christina Schenk Hargrove, aye.
And then, as a follow-up, I make a motion to move Article 2-14, Community Preservation Transfers, into the consent agenda.
Second. Darcy, second.
All those in favor, any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay.
So have a motion to move Article 2-14 into the consent agenda.
John Prulich, so moved.
Nick Tenson, second.
Take a vote. David?
Dave Wanger, aye.
John McGrath, aye.
Nick Tenson, aye.
John Prulich, aye.
Christina Schenk Hargrove, aye. To move into the consent agenda.
Okay, great.
All right, and the last article in the warrant, and I'll apologize as I start this, there should be an Appendix H, which includes the actual language of the resolution that's discussed here. We'll get that corrected and added to the warrant tomorrow. The Climate Change Resolution, Article 3-1, to see if the town will vote to adopt a resolution developed by the Hamilton Wenham Climate Action Team, a citizen-led group of volunteers that establishes a goal for the municipal government of the town of Hamilton to achieve net zero carbon energy by no later than 2040, and it goes on, as you can all read.
I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 3-1, Climate Change Resolution, excuse me.
Second, Rosie Kennedy.
So we get a motion.
John Prulich, I move that we recommend favorable action on Article 3-1. John, I need to assist. Second.
John McGrath, the second.
McGrath seconded that one.
All right, so for further discussion on for the select board, so we spent a lot of time doing this. I think Darcy and Rose spent a lot of time. They drafted a very, you're calling it what, Appendix H, Joe? But I think everybody should read that. It's very well written. It talks about all the milestones and efforts and things we've done in our community, which is pretty remarkable over the last few years. And and this also, what this enables us to do is apply for grants on the road. So by us having this climate change resolution allows us to apply for grants. That moves us in the right direction and helps funding for these programs in the future. It doesn't come out of the tax base. So this does not make any commitments or costs to the town, but it allows us to have a plan and a future and allow to apply for grants. So I think it's something that we obviously unanimously support. And if people have questions, they should first read the entire document, which, Joe, is it available on the website right now, or?
It will be. I just want to take back the promise I just made. I was informed by the town council. Town council hasn't had a chance to review the actual resolution yet. He'd like to do that and hand it out at town meeting as opposed to including it in the mailed document.
Okay.
So everybody will be able to see it on the day, but we don't want to have it out there until it's been reviewed by council.
But can we get it out there before? I mean, it doesn't. You're not going to take right to up to the day of town meeting, right? So we can.
We appreciate that,
Maybe Joe, you
Council.
can put it on the website as soon as it's.
We'll get it on the website as soon as it's approved by council, and then we'll.
So since it's not, maybe, do you want to give a quick synopsis of what you guys worked on?
Yeah, I think this is, the state, as a lot of you know, the state has made benchmarks, and we all are going to be doing whatever it takes to make those benchmarks for the state. And this is one way to do it without over-promising or creating a situation where you're forcing homeowners to do anything. This is strictly for municipal buildings and vehicles. And of course, we are hoping people will self-activate and put those solar panels up and get those heat pumps installed. But this is also a way of showing our values and where our principles are, where we stand in preserving our climate so we can keep living here. It's critical, and I think it's existential, actually. Rosie, did you want to?
I would just echo that. I think it's a good role model for the town to have these goals, and I think people initially were very worried that perhaps they were going to be compelled to do this too, and I think letting people know that it's just a goal, and watching how the town is able to fulfill this, meet these resolution standards will be a great incentive for us in general.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Can I ask a detailed question?
Yeah.
I have some broad questions, but So it mentions the school in here. Do we have the ability to, like, I mean,
No, but
did
they're
we set
working.
goals for the school?
The cats are working with the
With the schools,
schools.
yeah.
And there are a lot of things that can be done, a lot of things that can be done. Little things add up, and we're trying to, there is a person, I think his name is Scott Regan.
Yeah,
And he's working with the schools for lighting, energy, thermostats, little things like that. But it really does add up, you know?
But can we?
I don't know if we can
Well, I
charge
think-
them.
It
at the
doesn't actually
same-
say, it just says it can only apply to municipal and school operators, but it will apply. It's just basically limiting sort of the breadth of this thing. It doesn't, basically saying it can't affect private business, private homes. It's just for public realm, so.
What the state is encouraging us to do is to form regional collaborations and relationships so that the regional groups, the entities, which would be Hamilton, Wenham, and then the school district, could apply for grants and also technical assistance. They call it a Technical Assistance Program, TAP, and this is for phase 1 of a climate action plan. And so it wouldn't cost anything. It would just be guiding us on what monies are available if we want to take advantage of the grants or not. Hopefully we will. But these are all things we're all going to have to do regardless. Over time, it will all have to get done. Because we don't have a lot of time.
And Jamie, I think part of the, just encouraging the schools to join this, which the cats are definitely doing, is sort of realizing that it's taxpayer money that pays for all of these things. And when you don't turn off the lights and you don't turn down the heat, that affects taxpayers who are parents of school children also. So I think it behooves the town in general to think about these things and participate to the extent that they're able.
It might also help with collaboration with the budgeting, too. It might also bring the school committee into maybe the finance committees for advice and help on...
Are you saying mentioning the school in this will help bring them?
Well, what I'm saying is that once you start working together, it will hopefully grow. You know, there'll be more opportunities. That's how cooperation works, you
Yep.
know?
Yeah, I think that the mention of the school is really just defining what this resolution addresses, not what we're going to address.
potential.
as select
I
board.
understand that.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
it's a
I
regional.
understand what
Yeah.
Darcy's saying about
Discussion.
how this is making them work with us.
Encouraging them.
Encouraging
And
if they
actually,
want to.
right, and actually, I was at a meeting with them in, I think it was January or February, and they were,
Yeah.
they were open-minded to it.
No, I was there, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Duh. Right, but don't you agree that there was some optimistic talk about it?
Absolutely. What are the CATSs that you're mentioning?
Climate Action Team. I love that name, isn't it?
Hamilton Wenham Climate Action Team, so it's the Hamilton Wenham Cats.
Yeah.
So I think we're all a little, just like the last, the centennial,
Yeah.
the community house thing. We don't have any information about this. We were a little hesitant to vote on it because we didn't understand sort of what it was doing and why it came up and why now and
Right.
what it was gonna cost. So I don't know.
Well, if I could also mention that our energy manager, Vicky Massoni, who's been instrumental in garnering all these wonderful
Deals.
grants, she is on it, and she thinks it's a good thing to do, too. She's working with the cats to get that money, you know, to the schools and to the towns and everything like that. So I think it's win-win. I don't see any downside.
And there is no cost. So that's the other.
Well, no immediate cost. So I
Well, but
guess to
wait.
involve,
That's not
for the FinCom perspective, this is kind of the, and
a
with Rosie and
concept.
Darcy bringing it, it's kind of a pledge that we're going to do our due diligence and our best to enact some hopefully negative climate change.
Make it meaningful.
But this is where, once we do this pledge, the FinCom comes in and the Capital Committee, that we start, when we look at buying a new cruiser, we entertain the thought of an EV instead of a gasoline vehicle, and kind of et cetera. If we're updating town hall, we look at the lights, solar panels, and et cetera. So it will be cost down the road, but this is kind of
But
us
this is right, but this is.
kind of, I guess, doing the right thing for the environment, but there will be some incurred cost. But it's not a, it's more of kind of a promise instead of a
find further expenses down the road. It won't cost anything, but it'll help to find how we choose to spend money down the road.
right,
And
and
also
plus this
remember,
will help
these
us
are-
with grants.
And these are all
Right.
investments. They're considered investments that will save us money over the long term. That's the other thing we need to keep in mind.
So what kind of grants will this allow us to get? And are we sure that that we have the correct language in here that will allow us to, qualify for those?
As far as I know, I
Right,
know that the Cats worked on it, and
They talked about it.
and they have a lot of technical
talked about what?
expertise.
They talked about the fact that the way it's worded and the goals of this will help with eligibility for the TAP grants.
And other towns
So
are
number
doing
one, has
this.
it been vetted, that wording that we're
Well,
talking?
it has not been vetted
Not by
by
Tom.
Tom.
So that's number one. Number two, they've got some goals in here, and I'm not opposed to the concept, but we have goals in here
They're
of
state
improving-
goals.
of improving beyond the base of 2009. What was our consumption? How are we measuring this?
They have numbers.
They do.
Yeah,
Who does?
yeah, they do. The CAT.
Right, so we need
Team.
more information, I
Yeah.
think, to
Okay.
understand what we're talking about here. And what, you know, yes, it's.
I think it's just showing
laudable,
a
but it's-
commitment that we understand we're in a climate emergency, and that we're going to be taking steps wherever we can, wherever it makes sense, to do the right thing, make sure that we're protecting people from flooding, stormwater runoff, keeping our bills low by using solar for electricity, that kind of thing. I don't think there's anything really scary in here.
No, but I think to Nick's point, it's good to know the baseline, right? Where we were in 2009, and then we've gotten LED streetlights, what we've saved or lost in that process, and the schools have changed over some lighting as well, and cost efficiencies there. So knowing kind of where we started, where we are, then we can assess where we kind of want to be with it, which is where you guys would come in to recommending different actions based on this kind of commitment or promise.
I mean, I
Makes
guess
sense.
I didn't mean to,
That's fine.
to Darcy's point, that these are state sort of goals.
State goals, yeah,
So
right.
regardless of where we are in 2009, I'm not sure we change our goal.
Right.
It's not remember, it's not a mandate. It's
Right.
it's a goal.
It's a goal.
So there's no, I think it makes us more committed to working toward these goals, to have the resolution. So,
I mean, it'd be great to know by the time we get to town meeting, sort of
Right.
where we stand on those, but
guys are
as
always
far
for
as
the
my support,
numbers.
it wouldn't change.
Right.
Joe, you want to comment?
So the town is a green community in collaboration with the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District and the town of Wenham. So we could probably get our baseline data from Vicki Missoni, because that would have been required at the time that we applied for green community status, so.
Oh, great.
And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Darcy, Rosie, in the kind of draft language that you looked at, it lists a bunch of things that we've done already.
Yes.
Our plastic bag ban, LED lighting, all those
Composting.
composting, all those different things that we've done that make us a green community, and that we kind of are pledging to continue to do that and improve upon it. So that gives you a little bit more perspective on the overall picture.
Right.
Yeah, I'd be curious what town council has to say in terms of wording, but what I'm hearing is that we're being asked to vote on and adopt a non-binding resolution.
Correct.
It's a non-binding
Correct.
resolution.
So, to me, it seems as though we might want to put those words
Aspirational.
in the resolution, and then it gets us.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, John, and Rosie's mentioned she's had some questions, or Darcy, I can't remember who, had from private citizens saying, well, do I have to do this in my own home with my own cars and stuff like that, and I think,
'Cause if it really is non-binding,
It
I think
is.
we should say that.
Yeah.
If it isn't, then
Well, initially, the language indicated that it was to be binding, and I absolutely would not accept that, because it's just too tenuous a goal. It's an aspirational goal, as Darcy says, but you cannot put any
mandates.
on, so, but we'll defer to.
So I'm curious
Sure.
whether that language would enhance.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And that's precisely the type of thing that I want to look at in the draft resolution that I just hadn't had a chance to look at before this evening. I just want to make sure that the language that is included in the resolution clearly states that it's non-binding, this is a goal, it's an aspiration on behalf of the town to try to reach these goals that have been established by the Commonwealth, but doesn't bind the town to take any specific action.
I've got your back there.
And this is also being done throughout Massachusetts. Lots of towns are doing this now.
So I think the FinCom is in maybe, for me, it's an awkward position of being, absolutely in favor of the goals of this, but we're more constrained to consider the financial aspects of it. So you're asking us to support something that could cost the town money in the future. It could save the town money, could cost or save the town money. So as a FinCom, we have to decide from a financial standpoint, which is not usually the situation that I'm in, other than as in this position. From a financial standpoint, is this the best thing for the town, for the town's future financial situation? The thing that would go a long way to helping that is if you did, to say like if we have this particular language and it's been vetted, and yes, this is the language that we need in order to qualify for these types of grants, and we don't need to know exactly the ones, but for example, this one, and how much would it be? So we can then actually compare the dollars and cents, like, okay, this may cost us money in the future, but this may also bring in a source of money in the future. But we need some specifics, not like this is the kind of thing that you can do, that you can, that you might be able to qualify for grants in the future.
Well, I think you have to have this framework first before you can even apply for these grants.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's what the state is.
Yeah, I know we can't apply for them, but if we could have some examples of the types of grants that you might.
Yeah, we should have Vicki probably come, because she knows all that.
Yeah, so.
Or write a summary.
Yep.
If someone might be available, like I said, we're gonna meet tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Maybe she could write a summary or something.
Or if at
like
least
that.
one of us could have a conversation with her directly to then convey that information.
I would just like to make a point here that this is really a question in my aged head about process. I think it was Bill Olson who said that the select board has spent a lot of time on this issue, but FinCom has not been afforded that opportunity. I think everyone on FinCom is supportive of the concept.
Yeah.
But there are these questions and details. We have not had the opportunity to vet it. And that's what we're struggling with.
Right, and I think kind of to FinCom's, what's the word I'm looking for? Concerns, yeah, but I think it's tough to quantify, right? Because we're making a non-binding pledge to make these changes, but there's really no way to quantify what the cost will be in the future for these changes. So, I'm trying to.
Cost would be a separate vote and a separate.
Exactly, so that each step would be.
But, and I'm thinking kind of, I think we've only had a couple of times over the years where FinCom, either it hasn't quite made a recommendation, it's been split on recommendations. And if it comes down to that, I would probably say the way to approach it is kind of like you said, Christina, and say that, my moral compass says I'm in favor of all this stuff, but my financial compass for the town says there's just too many variables that I can't know at the moment. Yeah. So, maybe you make no recommendation, just say it's up to the folks at the meeting.
Well, there's also a part of this process where when you show that you're committed to going in that direction, it's a technical assistance program that is built into the process. So the first step, it would be getting the technical assistance program up and running, and I believe Vicki has also written a grant for that already. The deadline was last month, so she made it by like 2 days. So we'll see if we get that grant, but that's the beginning. That would be the beginning of working with the town to see where we are, what needs to get done, what grants are coming, because we don't know. So I just want, it would be good if we could be prepared to take steps when opportunities come our way. We'll at least be prepared, and we'll have some technical background assistance to help us understand what we're doing. You know, that's part of this whole process.
Okay, so I think we're gonna hold off voting until
Yeah.
tomorrow night, and.
Well, before, just one
Go ahead.
question I have is, will you have wording by tomorrow night?
No.
No, so I have a copy of what, it was a, 4 or 5 page document or whatever it was, which was a proposed resolution. I looked at this point, we've been focused obviously on preparing the warrant. The warrant article specifically just asks whether or not town meeting will vote to adopt this non-binding resolution. And then the language further says in the article to authorize the select board to enter into any agreements upon such terms and conditions as the board deems appropriate related to any such resolutions, including any grant agreements with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Resources or any other funding agency. So at this point, and I can certainly review the proposed resolution, but ultimately,
You're kind of authorizing the select board to take
is going to have
action.
to approve that anyway, so it would still just be a draft. And
So-
ultimately, I would assume that the climate action team group would also want to have some input into whether or not they like the changes that I'm going to propose.
Yeah, I mean, Mike?
But isn't that the
Question
climate
I-
action proposal, what you're looking at?
So I think generally, the article is looking, does the town want to adopt a resolution that establishes these baseline goals that are set forth in the article? And then ultimately, the
full
board.
resolution
itself is-
Some other time, the resolution.
Exactly. It would follow afterwards.
So that's my question. So the way this has been, and we looked at this at our last select board meeting, I think it was just like this. I thought this is the resolution that town meeting is asked to be voted on.
Doesn't
That's
refer-
correct. And
And
then,
it doesn't refer to an appendix.
Appendix, right.
No.
So, well, I guess.
It's a little
I know
confusing.
some of the other materials we've been looking at, but
I haven't
is
seen the
is town
appendix.
meeting supposedly approving the appendix?
No.
Or
I think
the
if,
town meeting is authorizing the board of town meeting is approving this non-binding resolution, and as part of that approval, the second half of that article, the town meeting is authorizing the Board of Selectmen to enter into any agreement upon such terms and conditions as it deems appropriate related to such resolution. So if the board wants to put together some other type of document that memorializes exactly what the board would like to do in terms of implementing this resolution, you can certainly do so. But the resolution itself is to establish for the town a non-binding goals with respect to trying to achieve net zero carbon energy emissions by a particular year.
It would also involve a committee, forming a committee to work with the technical.
Yeah, that's not in the article.
I know, but
But that
that's
certainly is something
probably
the
what
select
we-
board could vote to do if it wished to, but you don't need town meeting authorization to do that. The select board has the ability to create an ad hoc committee if it chooses to do so, to advise the board on any particular issue within its jurisdiction.
Yeah, I mean, right now, the warrant says to see if the town will adopt a resolution, blah, 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 to achieve net zero carbon energy by no later than 2040. I mean, it doesn't say that it's
It doesn't
non-binding,
indicate
it doesn't say
non-binding.
that it's,
He'll have to.
Well, it's a resolution, so by nature, a resolution
It's
is
non-binding.
non-binding.
And to adopt goals.
It can't be put in there in terms of adopting non-binding resolution?
Sure.
yeah, we could.
Yeah.
I'm fine with
That
that.
would go a long way to feel comfortable.
Yep. No, I think that's good, Nick.
Make it
But it's not
clear.
just me, it's, I think from a town perspective.
No, it's tough, and I think the thing here, because there's obviously confusion here within the boards about what exactly the warrant's trying to do, and the warrant's just authorizing the select board to make the resolution and act upon it. right? Is that the basics
That's
of it?
correct, exactly. So it's to see if town meeting will vote to adopt this non-binding resolution, which establishes these goals with respect to to achieve net zero carbon energy by the year 2040 with certain interim goals in between now and then. And then it authorizes the board to essentially enter into any agreements that it deems appropriate and to pursue any grant agreements with Department of Environmental Resources or any other funding agency. But again, this is all non-binding. It just establishes a goal of the community to try to reach.
Just to look at it from a different perspective and throw a wrench in the works here. If we didn't have this warrant article, would it change anything with our resolution?
No, not in my opinion. Again, it's non-binding. The select board could choose.
Right, this is just more kind of informational for the public.
That's
Well,
right.
it actually does have a purpose. It's the state that's looking for these kinds of commitments.
Community
from-
support.
Yes,
Right.
community support, because
Show
that's when the
community support,
grant, then they'll know how
Yeah.
many communities are interested in moving forward.
So it'd be
And again,
good
this
if
is a
it,
state,
Right, it'd look better for us
Yes.
if it was a town meeting
the town
vote.
say yes.
that's what we're
Right,
looking
because
for.
as Darcy often says, it's what do you say, it's our legislature,
Yes, it
et cetera,
is.
right?
Yes,
So it would be more meaningful
Yep.
if it was the townsfolk instead of just the select board voting on it.
So,
She says that all
They're-
the time.
Our main governing body is
This
the
is our
legislature.
governing body, is the town meeting.
Yeah, it is.
And Darcy, do you have any understanding of sort of how many other communities and towns have adopted similar?
I know that Rockport's working on it. I
Hasn't
know that
Beverly
Salem
and
and
Salem.
Beverly
Beverly
have
and
created a
Salem.
regional powerhouse.
I
And
th-
they're getting grants like crazy.
I think Salem is kind of the leader in
Salem's
this.
huge, and they've formed a partnership with Beverly to make, it's a force multiplier, right?
Yeah, I
Do
think
you
there's certainly
That's
an
why the
advantage
state
of,
is encouraging regional. We said, well, this would be a Hamilton, Wenham, and then the schools. That created a regional entity, so.
yeah, I mean, I think there's a certain advantage to being ahead of the curve on this rather than behind it.
Too.
Or else we'll all be waterfront property.
Yes.
Yes.
with no trees.
Doug's
I know.
I mean, I've heard all the
We'll go
discussion,
up
I
if you
appreciate
have
where FinCom is, I think they're meeting tomorrow, so it makes sense for them to debate a little bit more. I'm comfortable that if we, a motion that if we add the language non-binding resolution, I'm comfortable, because I think it's step one of many steps. And I
Right.
think it's better to do something tonight than nothing, and I want us to be in the warrant as supporting this resolution as a select board. So I'm comfortable voting for it, because I think, once again, we're not voting on the resolution, we're voting on just this language to support the
Correct.
resolution, right? So I still would like your comments back, so that if we choose to hand that out at town meeting floor, we can, but that's an option that we can have. But, that's my opinion, that I'm comfortable voting for it tonight based on the language that it would, we know it's non-binding, but we might add the language non-binding just to make it very clear to our citizens.
It's a good idea.
So do I have a amended motion?
I amend the motion to what you discussed.
And I'll second.
So we're gonna amend the motion to be just say it's a non-binding resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this is Rosie seconding that motion.
Okay.
And then I'll just, one kind of comment, since we're kind of in the discussion bit, is just whoever speaks this at town meeting, we need to be very clear about kind of the steps, and
Oh,
there's a difference between the
I'll
resolution
probably
and
speak to this
what the
issue.
warrant article is speaking to, so people don't
We're
get
not
confused.
spending money with this, and we're
That's right.
not being permitted to spend money. We're only being permitted to apply for grants and spend the grants and come back with
Discuss
future,
with FinCom, et
future
cetera.
planning and come up with things that may or may not cost money, but may be better for environment, so.
Right.
And so because of all that, I'm just sort of asking, it sounds like you're comfortable doing this without getting FinCom's advice.
Because we're not spending
Because
money.
we're not-
I'd rather
right,
because
it's-
if we actually started planning stuff, but I think this resolution is important
It's just
for
a
us.
starting
It's
point.
a point of entry.
Right.
It's a.
Not that we don't care about you, FinCom, we do.
Oh, yeah.
We're not spending money yet, so.
Right.
We're trying to
And we're
get
not
the
committed
ability
to
to apply
spending
for
money.
grants and get free money, so that's our
Non-binding.
goal.
As long as it's non-binding,
Yes.
That's right, there we
It's fine
go.
if it's non-binding.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, right, okay. So,
Any further discussion?
Um,
Uh,
No.
Okay, all those in favor of supporting this amended motion for Article 3-1, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, and you're going to table this until tomorrow.
Yes.
And maybe Vicky can talk to,
We will ask.
Oh, good.
that'd be great if she could attend
she's
the meeting.
available, yep. That
All right,
is,
Joe, what's next?
that is all of the warrant. You've given Alex and I a lot of stuff to make adjustments to tomorrow. In preparation.
When do we need to sign
You
warrant?
guys can sign, if you don't,
Can we sign it tonight?
sign it tonight.
Yeah, let's do that,
Yeah.
just so we
Two
don't.
copies, so you can, here's a blue ink pen, you can send it around. I did want to chat with you, Bill, and maybe if you don't mind doing a little bit in open session. We don't have very much that's on the agenda for next Monday, almost nothing.
Okay.
But we still need to talk about.
We need to do our script.
We still need to do script and movers and everything else. Would the board entertain moving your meeting from next Monday to the following meeting? Does that give us enough time? Yeah, it gives us enough.
Skip a week and go in the off week.
Go in the off week, and that way there, you'd be able to do all your movers and everything else right before, that Monday before town meeting.
Right, and then, and if I could add to that, FinCom, you guys are meeting tomorrow night, and as kind of we have in the last handful, you guys have moved a lot of the financial articles, so maybe throw your hands up in the air for ones that you guys want to move, and then we can talk about it at our meeting. Does that sound fair, Mr. Chair?
So we're gonna, yes, that sounds reasonable. So we're gonna meet on the 28th.
Does that make sense?
So we are not meeting next.
Just a suggestion.
That's a
but
Monday.
Monday the 28th.
At what time?
Your normal time is 7.
I would prefer to keep it at 7 instead of moving to 6:30.
There's the pen that goes with it.
Oh, do we have to sign with this pen?
Go ahead.
I make a motion that we adjourn for the evening.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Select board's adjourned.
Thank you, FinCom.